Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this council meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. Thank you for coming. And I'm going to ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Acts. If so, declare it now. Hearing none, we'll move on ahead. We've got a resolution moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Gunson, that the minutes of the Town of Minto, October 29th, 2024, regular council meeting be approved. All in favor of that motion? Carried. Thank you. Resolution moved by Councillor Potnovich, second by Councillor Dirksen, that the Town of Minto Council convene into committee of the whole. All in favor of that motion? It's carried as well. Thank you. So tonight we have a public meeting. I'll act as chair of the public meeting, and it's official plan amendment 2024-03, zoning bylaw amendment 2024-09, and draft plan of subdivision 23T-24003. It's Cache Homes, Inc., 41 Park Street West in Clifford. And Annaline, go ahead.
Thank you. The property is subject to the proposed amendment is located at part of Lot 61, Concession D, Clifford, in the Town of Minto. The subject property is approximately 10.65 hectares, or 26.3 acres in size. The purpose and effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the subject lands from agricultural site-specific A-1 and future development FD zone to residential site-specific R2X, residential site-specific R3X, and open space OS zone to facilitate the proposed draft plan of subdivision 23T-20202. Proposed draft plan of subdivision will consist of 117 single detached dwellings and 72 street townhouse dwellings. The OS zone is requested to apply to the park block, a walkway block, and a stormwater management block. Site-specific exceptions are being requested to the R2 and R3 zones to permit a reduced minimum lot area for select single detached lots, reduced lot frontage for corner townhouse lots, reduced side and rear yard setbacks to permit additional townhouse units in a row per block, and an increase in maximum lot coverage for single detached dwelling lots. The notices were mailed to the property owners within 400 feet or 120 meters of the subject property, as well as the applicable agencies, and posted on the subject property on October 21st, 2024. Reports and comments have been received by County of Wellington Planning, by the Town of Minto staff, by Upper Grand District School Board, as well as Wellington Source Water Protection.
Thank you, Clerk McRobb. I apologize for my telephone. I got a little ahead of myself here. I was supposed to call this public meeting to order and ask Annaline or Clerk McRobb to ask members of the public to sign in. So I'm assuming that everybody has done that. And then I was supposed to read if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Town of Minto before the bylaw is passed, person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Town of Minto to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of the appeal before the tribunal unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Apologize for getting ahead of myself. So I'm going to ask our county planner, Mr. Curtis Marshall, to give his comments regarding the proposed amendment to the comprehensive zoning bylaw number 01-86. Welcome, Curtis.
Good evening, Mayor Turton and members of council. Happy to be here tonight to provide you with an overview of the application for the purposes of tonight's public meeting. So the applicant has filed an official plan amendment, a draft plan of subdivision, and a zoning bylaw amendment with the county and the town to facilitate 189 residential unit subdivision. The official plan amendment has been filed to redesignate the lands as residential from future development and prime agricultural. The draft plan of subdivision proposes to create 117 single detached dwellings, 72 street townhouse dwellings, park, a walkway block, and a stormwater management block. The zoning bylaw amendment proposes to rezone the lands from agricultural site-specific and future development to R2 and R3 site-specific zones and to an open space zone to facilitate the subdivision. Site-specific amendments have also been requested to the zoning bylaw, permit reduced lot area, reduced lot frontages, reduced side yard and rear yard setbacks, and increased lot coverage. Other specific requests have been made, which are presented in more detail in the staff report. I want to note the subject lands were recently added to the Clifford urban boundary and were also recently redesignated to residential by the County of Wellington as part of Official Plan Amendment 123. And this was recently approved and has been forwarded to the province for final approval. I note the timing of the province's approval is unknown. However, if the province does approve OPA 123 here shortly, the applicant's site-specific official plan amendment application would no longer be required. So the applicant has submitted in support of the applications planning justification report, functional servicing report, a transportation impact study, a stage 1 and 2 archaeological study, and also a draft official plan and zoning bylaw amendments. So I note the subject applications and supporting technical studies are currently under review by town staff, the town engineer, and planning staff. Staff are not providing any recommendations tonight as part of the public meeting. However, staff in our report have highlighted some initial concerns with some of the proposed setback reductions, increased lot coverages proposed in the development. So we just note that minimum and maximum standards are established, which are there to ensure that there's sufficient access to rear yards, room to maintain the sides of dwellings, allowances for sunlight between dwellings, room for parking, drainage, grading, landscaping, snow storage, and amenity areas. So staff will be requesting that the applicant prepare a site plan showing a typical build-out of a unit on a lot. This would be to assist staff with the review of the proposed zoning standards. So as I'm getting close to concluding here, planning staff are in attendance tonight just to listen to hear any comments from the public. I note that the applicant's planner, Michael Whitner, is here tonight as well to answer any questions and provide any additional information. And finally, in terms of next steps, so once the draft plan of subdivision has been reviewed fully by town staff and the town engineer, a list of draft approval conditions will be prepared. Then after this point, planning staff will prepare a final report to council, which will seek town endorsement of the official plan amendment, plan of subdivision, and the zoning bylaw amendment. So once council has made a comment on the official plan amendment and plan of subdivision to the county will make a decision in respect to these applications. And then the final step, the amending zoning bylaw will be brought back to town council for their final consideration once the official plan amendment is in force effect. That concludes my presentation, and thank you.
Thank you, Curtis. We'll hold our questions for now, and we'll move right along to our Director of Building and Planning Services for the town of Minto, Mr. Terry Kuipers. Terry.
Thank you, Mayor Turton. Curtis did an excellent job summarizing what the proposed applications are for, so I have nothing additional to add, but I'm available for questions as well.
Okay, thank you. So then we'll, the owner applicant, any comments regarding proposed amendment, Andrew or Michael? Anything you gentlemen would like to add? If so, step up to the mic, state your name, and go from there.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Andrew Eldebs, and I'm with Cachet Homes. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank everybody for having us here today to consider the application. Thank you to staff for working with us along the way. It's been an amazing process with staff. And I'm going to let Mike go through the presentation, but I'll stick around to help answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Andrew. Michael, welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Turton, members of council. I'm Michael Whitmer, a senior planner with GSP Group in Kitchener, and we've been retained by Cache Homes to submit an official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and draft plan of subdivision. Most of what's been said tonight has been covered by Mr. Marshall, so I will be brief in my presentation. I'll perhaps focus a little bit more on the details specifically of the zoning bylaw amendment and get into, as I know there were several site-specific requests related to the various zones that we have requested in our application. So briefly, the site 41 Park Street West in the southwest part of the Clifford urban area. There is a rail trail to the east as well as Raccoon Creek and Rotary Park. There's low-rise residential, both developed and vacant lots to the north, and then general agricultural to the west and south. The site is about 10.5 hectares or just over 26 acres. Next slide, please. The Wellington official plan designates this as within the designated greenfield area, and official plan amendment 119, which was approved in May, designated this as a primary urban center, the entire site. The land use in the County of Wellington's official plan at the time that we submitted the application designated the site partially as future development as well as prime agricultural. This was recently changed by the County of Wellington on October 31st when they adopted official plan amendment 123. And as indicated, that has since been forwarded to the ministry for a decision with the timing unclear. The zoning of the site, it mimics the current official plan designation. It's partly zoned future development as well as agricultural. Next slide, please. I'm going to get into details briefly of the proposed residential subdivision. Perhaps if the next slide would show a chart, and I can get into details on here. But the draft plan is proposing unlotted blocks for the residential uses in the subdivision. So there's going to be a total of 117 single detached dwellings and 72 street townhouse dwellings for a total of 189 dwelling units. There's 3 new roadways that are proposed to be conveyed to the town, as well as the westerly extension of Park Street. Next slide, please. This is the draft plan of subdivision, and you can see the 117 single detached lots are predominantly along the southeast and southwest portion of the site. The 72 street townhouses are predominantly on the northeast portions of the site. There is a park block proposed in the northwest portion of the site that will run parallel to Park Street and its extension. And we feel that that location will complement the trailhead that's currently at the dead end of Park Street quite well. There's also a walkway blocks and a stormwater management block in the southeast portion of the site. Next slide, please. The official plan amendment application that we have submitted proposes to redesignate the entire site from future development and prime agricultural to residential area. The official plan amendment that we submitted was privately initiated and is proceeding independently from the county's official plan review. And as indicated by Mr. Marshall, if the ministry were to make a decision and approve the county's adoption of official plan amendment 123, our official plan amendment would no longer be necessary. Next slide, please. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment is looking to rezone the site from the agricultural 1 as well as future development to 2 specific residential 2 areas. There's 2 variations, as well as residential 3, site specific for townhouses, which is shown in yellow, and then open space, park, and stormwater management blocks, which are shown in green. Next slide, please. I'm going to get into the specifics now of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. I'm going to start with the requests that we did for the single detached zones. So there was a total of 4 site-specific amendments, or site-specific regulations rather, for the residential 2 zone. 1, to reduce the minimum lot area. The second, to reduce the minimum interior side yard. The third, to reduce the maximum lot coverage. And the fourth, to reduce the minimum landscaped open space. And some of those regulations that we've requested will proceed on a sliding scale basis, whereas if one is amended, it will automatically bring the other maximum or minimum regulation with down or up with it. Now I will get into the site-specific zoning regulations that we requested for the street townhouses. The first is to reduce the minimum lot frontage just for the corner lots. The second is to increase the maximum number of units that are permitted in a row. And the third is to eliminate the requirement for a townhouse buffer area. And then thirdly, there are some site-specific regulations that we've requested that apply to both the single detached and townhouses, and I will go through these briefly as well. The first is to reduce the minimum front yard. The second is to reduce the minimum exterior side yard. The third is to reduce the minimum rear yard, and that will be 7 meters for singles and 6 meters for townhouses. The fourth is to increase the maximum building height, and this will apply predominantly to the perimeter lots that will have a basement walkout feature and to recognize the increase in height on the rear elevation. The fifth is to permit a modest encroachment for bow bay and box windows as an architectural feature. The next is to reduce the daylighting triangle on corner lots to 6 meter by 6 meters. And the final is to permit an air conditioner to encroach or to be less than 1 meter from the interior side lot line. And specific to this request, I do note that this is dually mentioned in the town zoning bylaw in 2 sections. And there's a more permissible section, particularly 6.37E, which indicates that air conditioners are permitted, are permitted in any required yard. So that concludes my presentation, and I would be happy to entertain any questions that council may have tonight. Thank you.
Okay, Michael, thank you very much. So I'm going to, any persons wishing to speak to the application can come forward. And if there is none, then I'm going to open it up to members of council. Questions? Councillor Elliott, go ahead.
So Bill 123, there's no timeline for it to come forward. If it was to come forward and approved, does that mean you won't have to come back to council, or are you just reporting back to council? We won't have any decision on what's going on. What happens there?
So I can provide clarification on that. So it's not Bill 123, it's official plan amendment 123. Right. If it's approved prior to this private OPA application, approved by the province, then this OP application would be redundant. So I believe the owner or the applicant would withdraw that application, but proceed with both the rezoning application as well as the plan of subdivision.
Okay, meaning some of it will be in and some of it will be out, or what's that mean?
So what it means is the site-specific zone relief would still be needed if official plan amendment 123 is approved by the province, as well as the plan of subdivision application would still be required as well. So it'd be one of the 3 components would be redundant.
And we're pretty sure 123 will be accepted. It's never been turned down, is it?
No, it's more of a timing thing. So basically where things are at this point, it's sitting on the minister's desk, and once the minister gets around to signing it, then it will become enacted. When that is, like Curtis mentioned, is unknown. It could be 2 weeks, it could be 2 years. So what the applicant's intending on doing is just expediting that process, just to keep the development moving forward.
All right, thanks.
Councillor Pontovitz, go ahead.
Yes, through you, Mayor. I have a number of concerns and questions here. Okay. The single detached. Well, one question is, what is 1.96 foot split? What's that mean? That 1.96 feet to property line, and then another 1.96 feet to the property line. Greenhouse.
So which setback relief are you referring to? Sorry.
Interior side yard minimum.
Interior side yard. So yeah, I believe the intent would be 1.2 meters to the property line on one side of the dwelling unit, and then 0.6 meters on the other side. So for a single family, left side hypothetically is 1.2, right side would be 0.6.
The next house beside it would have 1.6.
Could be either 1.2 or it could be each side 1.6, depending on the configuration. So it could be
4 feet
between the face of the houses. That's correct.
Another question, that concern I had on the setback requirements for exterior side yard and the front yard. Is that going to give you enough site triangle?
And that is what the intent with that reduction in the site triangle is with these, or the proposed building be located that close to the corner. One thing I did want to mention, which would be clarified down the road at the bylaw stage itself, our zoning bylaw does permit certain encroachments, one of which would be a covered front porch. And it's allowed to encroach 3 meters into a required yard. So with the proposed reduction on the exterior side, if that clause remains unclarified, a covered front porch could be built right on that exterior side property line. I don't believe that's the intent of the applicant, but that's something that staff will be looking to address down the road.
More in regards to townhouse.
Go right ahead, Councillor Cotton. Let's go ahead.
Same concern on the site triangle. So more of a reduced exterior side yard on townhouse, 3 meters. Front yard, you're looking at 4 meters to the front wall. That's still enough area for a site triangle.
And again, that's with the proposed reduction to it, is to ensure that with these proposed decreases in those setbacks, that the dwelling itself would not be within that required site triangle area.
I suppose these townhouses are going to be split. Three homes.
I would assume so, yes.
All of the people in the center units got access to the
what we've required in the past, which would mimic this situation as well, certain street townhouses that we've dealt with in the past do have an interior, or a passageway through the garage to the rear yard. So essentially, there's a person door at the rear, which would allow you to access your individual unit. If that is not proposed as part of the building design, then we require easements to access all of the rear yards. If someone wants to build a deck, a fence, whatever, they have legal rights to bring materials into their rear yard without having to drag it through their house.
rear yards really small, 1.6 feet.
No, the rear yards for the single family, the proposal
for
is
the
a 2-foot reduction from
townhouse.
townhouse. The rear yard reduction is reduced by 1.6 meters. So it's going to be down from 25 to 20.
So you would look at that at stage one, take access to the rear yard, or would be easement across.
Before they would be permitted to be split, we would need to know what the direction is. So going through the part lot control stage, we would ask for that to be added as part of the RPs. Just again, so that someone in the middle does have legal access to their rear yard.
Thank you.
Other questions? Councillor Dirksen, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was looking at the street layout, which I kind of like because it's really easy to get lost in a subdivision. There's lots of curves and so on, but is there a danger of it becoming more of a raceway, and there's not a lot of room between the front of a house and the street? So I wondered if that was an issue, because those curvy streets that you get lost on, they do serve to calm the traffic down somewhat. And I don't know, it's a question, just below a comment. I was also wondering about that front yard minimum, and maybe this is a Terry question, I'm not sure, but would there be any concerns about snowplows going down the road and causing damage to the front of homes or garages?
I'm not anticipating it. We have permitted reductions in the front yard to the building face, not the garage face on other applications. We have had a couple that have been approved down to 4.5 meters. Snow removal equipment on a road like this will not be fast. And the thing to keep in mind is the road fabric there that's shown is the entire width of the road allowance itself, which is 66 feet wide. So from typically parking on one side, a road asphalt width is 8.5 meters. Sorry, I don't know the conversion off the top of my head. Whereas the entire road allowance width is 20.1. So there is a boulevard buffer on each side. And then from that front property line to the face of the garage will be 20 feet, but to the face of the house itself is proposed to be down to 13.1.
Okay. Thank you. Another one?
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Dirksen.
Do we know what size these homes will be? Like approximate square?
Yes. With respect to the size of the homes, we're thinking to do between bungalow product and two-story product. So the size can range anywhere from, like for the townhouses, we're looking at around 1050, 1100 square feet to start. The two-story single detached product can go, anywhere up to 3,000 square feet.
And oh yes. So I was wondering if this is in. It's probably been repeated in all of the reports though, but this one I have to have up here is County of Wellington, and it's on page 7 of that report, and it says it's item E. It says in the built boundary, medium density townhouses are encouraged to locate on major roadways and arterial roads. And then across from it says the property is located in a greenfield area. And someone mentioned, I'm not sure who it was, but I was just wondering, can you kind of explain that a little bit more?
Through Mayor Turton.
Go ahead,
Councillor
sir.
Dirksen. So this, what you're referring to is a chart that starts on page 6.
Yes.
So in the county plan, I think it has a section about medium density development and talks about compatibility. So it lists a list of criteria of things that should be considered if medium density development is permitted. So I took the reader through each of the criteria. So when we get to the E, which you were talking about, is the built boundary. So it says in the built boundary, medium density townhouses are encouraged to locate on major roadways and arterial roads. So that criteria in this case wouldn't apply. So this property, since it was just added to the urban boundary, is considered a greenfield area. The built boundary was a line that was drawn by the province a number of years ago, where they basically looked at every municipality in every town and drew a line to clarify where the built areas were, and then the unbuilt, which were.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So the idea in the built area, there would be intensification. If you're outside the built area, so this would be outside that area, that's a greenfield development.
Oh, okay.
So
it's not considered medium density.
So the whole development isn't medium density, but the town has blocks. But so
okay.
they're a form of medium density.
All right, super. That makes more sense. And are the farm buildings going to be demolished, or is there still that? I can't tell from the picture. It's a little fuzzy. Whether there's still a laneway back to them, or?
There is a proposed link through the subdivision to the existing house. One of the requirements that we added to a site servicing agreement previously and will be replicated through the subdivision agreement is a separate farm entrance to Park Street or to Underway Road, yet to be determined. You couldn't physically move any of the modern day farm equipment through a subdivision, and I know the owner wouldn't want it, and neither would the residents. So we have taken that into account. None of the buildings, to my knowledge, have been demolished. I believe the owner no longer operates a dairy farm any longer. It's more just a cash crop operation. So we're not anticipating any conflicts between this and the existing farm cluster.
Okay, thank you. I think that's my questions.
Any other questions? Mayor Anderson, go ahead.
Thank you. So just, they call it medium density. It looks like pretty intense density to me, but living in rural Ontario, it looks pretty crowded in there.
I'm wondering about the parkland that's way up in the corner of that lot and how much use that would be to the general subdivision. I'm curious about parking. Nobody's talked about parking yet, but I'm thinking 189 homes on 20 acres with 2, 3, 4 vehicles each. Maybe, potentially, some of those homes are sounding fairly large, is going to be a concern that'll be addressed in the future explanations, I'm assuming.
So with respect to the park block, it will be at the end of the Park Street Extension bulb. So the general public driving would have access to it in that location. From the internal road fabric, there also is a link to that park. In the diagram that Michael provided, showed the green park area. What was omitted in that diagram was just a small narrow strip that leads from the internal roadway to that park.
I see the strip, but
Sorry, it wasn't zoomed in close enough.
Yeah.
With respect to parking, this subdivision would be no different than any of our other subdivisions. So yes, the people do have a lot of cars, which is what it is. The parking that is required to be provided is per our zoning bylaw. So if they meet it, that's great. They would have to meet it, obviously. The other thing, I believe the road width itself is wide enough to facilitate 2 driving lanes of traffic plus parking on one side.
okay, thank you.
Other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Johnson.
I'm not sure this can be answered, but so I understand, like, we want to put as many homes as we can in development. If we were to follow the permitted policy requirements, how many units could we put in those in that 10.5 acres? Do we know? Like, I'm sure that that's a starting point for everybody, and then we go, okay, let's try and get what we can out of it and jam as much as we can. Do we know that number off the top of our head if it was to be followed?
The only reduction in the unit count that I can foresee would be in the townhouse units. They're not proposing a decrease in required lot frontage, that's what typically you see to add additional units. The only difference with the townhouse blocks that I mentioned is they're proposing to increase the number of attached units from 6 to 8. So you would lose a unit or 2 because of the width of that face-to-face interaction. So if nothing changed, your unit drop would be very minor. Probably like 2 or 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions? Question on the, sorry, go ahead, Councillor.
Through you, Mayor Chair.
Gentlemen,
I'm just wondering, you can't really tell on this diagram, are there going to be sidewalks in this subdivision?
We will be requiring through the plan of subdivision a sidewalk on one side, which is common with this type of development. And it would be our normal back of curb sidewalk that we're seeing in our current developments.
And the other question is, you talk about parking on one side only. Is that going to be signed so that it definitely is?
That is correct.
For everyone to see?
Yeah, it would be a provision that's required within the plan of subdivision that the developer installs these signs before we take it on or take it over. Sorry.
Just one other question. So I know we're talking about reducing side yards. So that was wall-to-wall measurement. That doesn't include the overhang, right?
It does not, no.
So it's going to be extremely tight.
So if it's 0.6 meters to each building face to the property line, it will be tight. Our permitted eve encroachment is 30 inches, which would exceed that 2-foot mark. I don't believe the developer would actually have the eaves trough touching. It just doesn't function well and holds a lot of snow. So it would be probably a reduced eave projection if it's that case. Also to add, even if it's 2 feet on to the property line on one side and 4 feet to the other, just because our eave projection is the 30 inches, the eaves trough and eaves itself could not extend beyond the property line. So they will have to have, no one builds 30-inch eave projections. They're always 24s or 18s. So.
Other questions? Okay, great questions. All my questions were answered, except for one. I don't think I can remember ever in any request to have all sides of the house setbacks or alterations to the distance to the lot line. I mean, I mean, can you tell us, Curtis, is this something that is happening down further south? Or, I mean, we're talking Wellington County here, and can you remember a time, Terry, when we had?
We have one current development with similar setbacks.
Okay.
It's a land lease development in Harriston.
Okay, yeah.
And that was approved probably prior to most of you being on council. But since my time with Minto, there has not been a request like that.
Yeah. So this is absolutely normal.
I guess, is there such a thing as normal in
Yeah, okay.
planning? I don't know, but yeah, no. So it's probably not uncommon to see various requests to setbacks, and so there are similar developments. Cache did a similar development in Arthur very recently, and still under construction. So they have some similar requests they've made that are in place in Arthur. However, there are a few additional ones that are further reduction than maybe what I've typically come across, but certainly have a look at them and have some further discussions with the applicant before coming back to you.
So when we talk about sidewalks, I was through the Arthur development today, and I was actually quite impressed with what I saw. If I was purchasing a house in there, I would likely want a house on the opposite side of the sidewalk, opposite side of the street. Because some of the parking spots are tight, and I'm assuming that there's some similarities between that one in Arthur and the one proposed for Clifford.
One notable difference between the sidewalk location in Arthur opposed to how we require it here. If I drove through the development in Arthur probably about a year ago, so I apologize if I got my memory wrong. I believe in Arthur, there's the curb, then there's a grass boulevard strip, then the sidewalk. We require the sidewalk at back of curb. So the owners aren't getting more land per se. It will just look like they get more land. So they'll be, instead of having usually a 5-foot grass strip, 5-foot sidewalk, and then to the property line, it would gain them that extra 5 feet that's lost right at the back of curb.
Deputy Mayor Anderson, go ahead.
Just a couple other things while I'm thinking about this. What is the length of time development of this? Is this going to be done in phases? And what's the impact on our water and sewer? I know it talked about structure needing to be built. What about the capacity of our system up there? That's a lot of houses in a community like Clifford.
It is, and ironically, based on the official plan, Clifford is the only serviced urban center within the entire Wellington County that has services calculated beyond 2051. Our current capacity, we do have obviously the capacity to build this system. One thing that is required through the subdivision process is that we grant allocations, water and sewer, to this development for a period of time. Typically, we have in the past gone for a 5-year allocation window, which coincides with the requirements from West Ontario Power. So I kind of link those together. If the development doesn't proceed at the anticipated rate, so whatever the phasing provisions will be, after that period of time, they no longer have those allocations. So we can move those to other developments if needed within Clifford.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, other questions? All of our questions are answered. Is there anything, Andrew, you want a final response? Michael?
Yeah, thank you. So thanks for all of your questions, all very good questions. I think, a couple of them that I wanted to address with respect to the 0.6 meter side yard for the single detached homes. Obviously, the reduction in the yards is to allow us some more flexibility to facilitate a desirable building footprint. With respect to that 0.6 meter side yard, I realized that perhaps it might not be typical to the town of Minto. We do it a lot across other municipalities. It still meets the OBC requirements and whatnot, but we do have, if council is concerned about the 0.6 meter side yard, there's, we do have some flexibility with respect to that. And we'll of course discuss that with Terry and make sure that ultimately everybody's satisfied. With respect to the site triangle reduction to 6 meters, I think that the town's zoning bylaw requires a 7.5 meter by 7.5 meter site triangle. The reduction to 6 meters was specifically in some of the lots, the driveway slightly encroached into that 7.5 meter site triangle. So it was just to allow that driveway encroachment, or not encroachment, just to reduce it so that driveway for those units are not encroaching into the site triangle. And I know there is another zone in the town that requested that same reduction. I think it's the R37 zone. So that's another point that I wanted to address. With respect to the street layout, I don't want to get too out of line here, but obviously there will be traffic calming measures, I'm sure, with respect to the subdivision agreement and whatnot, but good concern, of course. Building demolition, there's no buildings on the plot of land that the subdivision is proposed over, so no buildings are going to be demolished. With respect to sidewalks one side, parking, of course, as Terry mentioned, we will follow the zoning bylaw. There's going to be on-street parking. We'll make sure that we meet the town's minimum, or hopefully over the minimum requirements as well for on-street parking. And that's all I got here, but yeah, I appreciate all of your comments. Thanks a lot.
Michael, anything to add? Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. That was great as well. And I'll add a bit more context as well to some of the zoning regulations we've requested. The driveway location and the design that we're going for is to pair the two driveways on flipped facades of the house, so that the 0.6 meter side yard reduction to an interior side lot line will only apply to one side of the house, whereas the other side of the house will have a 1.2 meter side yard setback. And we feel that that will also allow in turn for there to be more on-street parking able to be accommodated on the longer side of the house where the driveways are not paired with the adjacent house. So that was one of the intentions we were going for with that request. There was a comment about density and kind of how we got to the minimum numbers. I do note that the county's official plan has a policy that greenfield development is to strive to achieve a minimum 16 units per gross hectare. And this proposal is just very slightly over that minimum at 18 units per gross hectare. So we were actually in preliminary consultations with the county, encouraged to modestly increase the density to meet that 16 units per gross hectare minimum. Those were all the further additions that I had.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to state that if you wish to be notified of the decision of the council of the town of Minto in respect to proposed zoning bylaw amendment application, you must make a written request to the clerk of the town of Minto at 5941 Highway 89, Harrison, NOG 1Z0, or by email at town.minto.on.ca. And if there's no further questions, I'm going to adjourn this public meeting. So thank you very much, gentlemen. So we have a delegation this evening. We have the Nuclear Innovation Institute, Southwestern Ontario Isotope Coalition overview. We have CAO Jessica Linthorne and Mayor Ian Boddy. I believe, Ian, you didn't say, but I got the impression you're from Owen Sound. Is that true? All right, so you two have the floor. And if
Thank you. We know the production of medical isotopes is happening at Bruce Power. We know we have an opportunity to build an ecosystem around that production. And we do celebrate, we recognize that the isotopes that are produced at Bruce Power are produced on the territory of the Sovereign Ojibwe Nation. Next slide, please. So as Mayor Boddy referenced, the City of Owen Sound, the Nuclear Innovation Institute, and the Canadian Nuclear Isotope Council are really proud to work together. And this coalition did take shape in June, as Mayor Boddy referenced, following an event where we really learned more about the opportunity and how the world is looking for more Canada. The world's looking to us to continue to produce and to increase the production of the isotopes happening right just next door in Bruce County. Next slide, please. So with that, we do have an opportunity to put our region on the map. We have an opportunity to be collaborative. The global demand for isotopes is growing. We know that medical isotopes do provide sterilization of one-time use medical equipment, but they're also used to treat cancer, but also to diagnose cancer. We also are learning more about isotope use for research with regards to mental health and addiction, which is a really fascinating field as well. A lot of research coming out of CAMH with regards to that. So we are quite a passionate group, and as Mayor Boddy referenced, we're doing a lot of these delegations and having lots of conversations like this to make sure that our part of the province of Southwestern Ontario, that people are engaged and informed of the opportunities with this production, but also just to celebrate the opportunity ahead of us and the ecosystem that we can be building. Next slide, please. Important, we do take that collaborative approach. So what we have positioned as the Southwestern Ontario Isotope Coalition, if you're familiar with the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, we're sort of following that roadmap of geography. So when we describe Southwestern Ontario, but I will share, we have made a delegation to the region of Waterloo at their request to learn more. The University of Western had reached out, McMaster University. So a lot of these conversations are happening, some proactive like this, where we're coming to you, and some academic institutes that are reaching out to us to say, we understand the opportunity with your CANDU reactors and this production, the isotope production system that's in place. And we want to be part of that ecosystem. So we're certainly quite proud to say that we have upward of 30 members now in the coalition. Next slide, please. As referenced, the CNIC, so that's the Canadian Nuclear Isotope Council, released a report, it was March 23, I believe, Isotopes for Hope. And so you can take a look at that online. I'm happy to circulate a link as well. But really identifying these 5 barriers around infrastructure, logistics, a market adoption, the economics behind, and then certainly labor and training. One of the things that the Nuclear Innovation Institute, so where I work, one of the things we do is workforce development. I'd be happy to come back and make a delegation about our organization because I do certainly see, again, that collaborative approach. The SOIC is one program within the NII. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, we're going to continue to talk about this. We're going to continue to build awareness. Last year at Roma, so that was January of 24, we did a presentation. So we're really interested in working with municipal government. We're really interested in building that messaging, helping our neighbors understand the opportunity coming out of that production and the global reach that we have. So we are building a roadmap together to support this ecosystem development. We're doing a number of delegations, as I mentioned. We're also, through the NII, we are a not-for-profit member-based organization, so we have an opportunity to leverage some funding opportunities through grants and other research initiatives. So we are moving a lot of this work forward, and we're really proud of that. The one piece that I didn't touch on when we talk about medical isotopes, and the best way to think about, and I guess it was the slide that talked about the barriers, one of those barriers was logistics. So I'll just speak to this very quickly because I do find that it's an important piece of the story. If you think about a medical isotope as an ice cube, and so that medical isotope comes out of the reactor. Right now at Bruce Power, they're producing cobalt-60 used to sterilize and a number of procedures, but then also lutetium-177, which is used to treat prostate cancer. So lutetium-177, as the example, will come out of the reactor. It's packaged, it's sent to Pearson Airport, it flies to Germany, it's processed now into the drugs, and it has to hit patients. All of that has to happen in 7 days. And we have Bruce County winters, we have road closures, we have challenges logistically. And of course, it's radioactive material, so there's logistics and regulatory process that has to happen. So this is a piece, and again, when I think long game, when I think what is the opportunity from today into 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, and I think about it from the ecosystem development and quite frankly, how we fight cancer locally, I think about aligning advocacy efforts to ensure that we have access to cancer care close to home. I think about the opportunity for that processing facility. What could processing look like closer to home? And when we talk about closer to home, I think about Southwestern Ontario, but I also think about the opportunity for Canada. I think about the opportunity for Ontario, and I think about the opportunity for us here in Southwestern Ontario. So right now, I share that story to say, if you think that ice cube, take it out of the freezer, you hold it in your hand, it starts to melt. That radioactive isotope that will help save lives and fight cancer. When it comes out of that reactor, we got to move quick with it. So we have a really exciting opportunity. It has been an absolute privilege to work with Mayor Boddy and James Skoniak and Theron Solomon, councillor from Nawash, to move this initiative forward. And so we would like to invite you to join the coalition. We've included an application link here online. And then lastly, I will note, to join the coalition is about coming together. It's increasing your awareness. It's increasing our aligned advocacy efforts. It's participating in quarterly meetings with our members, learning more about the research and the opportunity and the ecosystem development. And we're not looking for a financial contribution for that. We're looking for a dedicated person from your municipality to just join us on this journey and learn more. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, unless Mayor Boddy has anything to add.
No, just by luck, you think about economic development. I was just at an event at the gates of Bruce Power at the NII Center, and I followed a pickup truck all the way from the gates that was leaving Bruce Power that turned off the road just in front of me, somewhere between here and Clifford. So there are people obviously working, living in your community that are working at Bruce Power an hour away. That's the kind of impact that Bruce Power has to the whole region. So would be very pleased if you would join us with this, and it will benefit the whole region. So, unless you have any questions.
Yeah. So when we join as a town of Minto.
Yes, that's correct.
And do we need a resolution or anything?
We are leaving that up to the municipalities. Some municipalities are passing a resolution and appointing a staff person or an elected official to join us. And then some are a little bit more casual and just coming to the table, but I can certainly follow up with just our regular cadence of our, we do have a meeting coming up in a couple of weeks for our Q4 meeting, but we do meet on a quarterly basis.
Sure, it's pretty clear in your presentation how to join. So I know the other municipalities that have joined. So questions for these two folks? It was a great presentation, and go ahead, Councillor Potnovitz.
Yes. Mayor, you mentioned that these are shipped off Germany. Would there be an opportunity to do that here rather than shipping?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So right now, that's the process for that specific isotope. And that's a processing opportunity. So produced, local, processed in Germany for that isotope. And that's for a number of reasons. But that really comes down to making that isotope into medicine. It's making it into that drug. And so there have been, high level conversations. One of the things that I do speak with Mayor Boddy and my colleagues quite regularly is we have opportunity, and that's a long-term game. But what I don't want to do is be 10 years down this road and looking in the rearview mirror. I think that if we can be proactive now, demonstrate our collaboration, demonstrate and show the world and show companies like the company in Germany, show them that we're ready to do this and that we have an ecosystem here, we have housing. That was a fantastic public meeting. I was glad I was here for that. But it's an opportunity for us to celebrate the communities that we are, to celebrate who we are as a culture, and the opportunity to leverage that processing facility or create that opportunity here.
Other questions? I can say that we certainly do have quite a number of folks in our community that do work at Bruce, and we're very pleased with that. You heard Clifford is looking at this big expansion subdivision, and that's all preparing for the the possibility of the nuclear waste repository in Teeswater. If there's no other questions, I would like to thank you folks for coming. Appreciate you being here, and sorry it took so long to get you to the mic.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for allowing us to speak.
So if you want, you can stay or you can leave, do whatever you want, okay? Thank you very much.
I've sat through the odd council meeting. I think maybe I'll escape.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, so next we have public question period. The mayor, as chair of the meeting, has the duty to preserve order and maintain decorum throughout the meeting, although council strives to hear and be responsive to resident concerns in order to preserve order, maintain decorum, and comply with the town's procedural bylaw. I wish to caution any participants in the question period that questions that are discourteous language will not be permitted. Questions that seek policies or bylaws outside the town's jurisdiction, including policies or bylaws that might violate human rights legislation, will not be permitted. Anything that constitutes speeches or statements not in the form of a question will not be permitted. Repeat questions will not be permitted, including the repetition of questions from prior meetings, and all persons shall be limited to no more than 2 questions. So, public question period is on. Right? Go ahead, Roger.
Name's Roger Natcha. I got a little statement thing I want to say, but then I got a question after. You guys are proposing a 6.5% tax levy for next year. And you've got on here that you got in reserve 781,000. I think that says, it's kind of hard to read it. In reserve for the taxes. Now, people are struggling to pay stuff. People are going to food bank. You have a lot of money in reserve. So I think if you cut that down 30%, that will still leave you $500 million in reserve. So that can help bring the tax rate down to start with. And the same as the road repairs. There's a lot of money spent for road repairs. And
you want to get to the question, please?
The roads don't get repaired.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, why can the Wellington North Council propose a 3.5% tax levy, but you guys want to double it here, and most of the communities are half of what you guys want to charge? Why is that? Where is all this extra money going that's being wasted?
CAO, you want to respond to that, please?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So the idea around this process is simply that we are to increase our reserves, because these reserves are important for the maintenance of our facilities and our fleet and so on, infrastructure. And we are looking to still have this discussion. So this discussion isn't over yet. We do have an open house coming. Can't remember the actual date.
December the 3rd, I think.
December the 3rd.
At supper hour between 5 and 6, when anyone can make it. Yes.
So members of the public are certainly more than willing to come to that open house and share their thoughts with council. And then we'll come back later in the month in December with a final draft for council to consider. So there's nothing set in stone as of right now.
Well, just gotta make sure you should cut that down, because you don't need that much reserve. Just keep, you're taking from the taxpayers that can't afford it right now. People in town that are on old age, they can't afford to pay the taxes it is, they're paying them late, costing them more money.
You have another question? Another question?
And
Roger?
one more question.
Yep.
One of the councillors mentioned, this has got to do with the Clifford expansion. Councillors mentioned about parking of people having 3 or 4 cars, which most people do have 2 or 3 cars. They said they got parking on one side of the street. What happens in the wintertime when there's no parking on the street? Where are those extra cars in the park? And where are the visitors going to park that come for Christmas stuff? Where are they going to park? If you got a special visitors parking area to accommodate all these extra vehicles, I asked Councillor Judy Dirksen to ask, but she refused to ask the guys that they were here. So, and you wouldn't let me ask when they were here. So what's happening with all these cars that are going to be coming in when you can't park on the street?
Right. Sorry.
I would like to respond to that if I could.
Yes. Do you want to go ahead?
So if I start taking questions from the floor and asking them, I will never stop. So I will not take a question that you want me to ask a delegation. That just isn't how it works. But I'm sorry, and now you have the opportunity to ask the question anyway.
But
so
people are here are not here to answer the question. And
yes,
the mayor wouldn't let me ask earlier.
Correct. That's
right.
protocol.
But it's not protocol for me to take a question from you and to then ask the delegation either. I'm sorry.
So what's going to happen with that part?
CAO Kuipers, do you want to answer that question? Sorry.
I apologize, CAO Fortney, for taking over your role. But seriously though, for the most part, the properties do have sufficient area for vehicles to park both in the summer and winter time. Unfortunately, what people need to realize is that garages are meant to be parked in and not storage facilities. Fortunately, that is the case. So in the event that, you know, I have 3 vehicles and my driveway can only accommodate 2, I need to make room in my garage to park my vehicle. So it's not really the town's concern, it's how the persons operate their property.
But if the houses are being posted to the road, is there going to be room to put 2 vehicles? And it's just pickup trucks nowadays, those fuel cabs, they're like 20 feet long. You can't get 40 feet in a 25-foot area.
So the proposal for the driveway itself is not proposed to be reduced from current provisions.
So they're going to be like 40 feet long?
The minimum to the front property line would be 20 feet.
So you get one pickup truck in there, and the other one can't get you about 21 parking.
It's the width you have to keep in mind too. So you can have 2 vehicles side by side plus a vehicle within, or 2 vehicles within the garage.
How about the business? How's that going to work? There's going to be special parks on some places have.
Okay, so, excuse me, sir. You've had your two questions. Terry has answered your question, so I'm going to cut you off.
Okay.
All right.
Next council meeting, I'll ask. I'll
All
be
right.
back.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Go ahead, Dale.
Green? Okay. Dale Robert Palmerston. I have a couple of questions from previous council meetings. One was the speed cameras. I was just checking to see if the volunteer firemen have been registered at the OPPs, this new tactic you're using, so they won't get charged.
Yes, they have. Go ahead.
I can speak to that.
CBO.
So thank you very much. I just got my wages slashed. So volunteer firefighters, even though they have the green flashing lights, they do not have the right to exceed the speed limit. So they would fall under the same provisions. The intent with that green light is to make a visual reference that they're coming to get out of their way, not so they can race to the fire hall.
So they will have to go to court.
They would have to abide by the same rules that you and I have to.
So every time if they go through that speed.
If they are speeding, they are breaking the law. They are still a private citizen, so no different than us. Again, the intent with the green light is so people get out of their way to make room for them.
So you're not going to get too many volunteer firemen using that road.
So I don't think we have to really worry about that, Dale. So a lot of the parameters around the cameras have not been finalized.
Okay.
And yeah.
Thank you.
But that's definitely been discussed.
Sure. And second question was, there's an engineer firm gave a proposal on excess water flow for Harrison. And there was talk about 35 homes that had to be moved in that proposal. And I was wondering if that was added to the cost of that proposal and whether or not these homeowners were.
To my knowledge, there is no proposals to move, demolish, purchase any houses with respect to flood mitigation. So I'm not. Oh.
I think what it was the homes were moved out of the flood zone because of changes in the river and so on, right? So they were moved. They're not moved, physically moved. They're just moved out of the flood zone. I think
they're no longer in the flood zone.
Yes.
Flood zone has changed.
Yeah. So they haven't. Yeah, they haven't.
Building has moved.
No. Well, absolutely, but there are some that have been moved out. So that's what they were referring to, I believe. Quite true.
Other questions? Steph.
Good evening, council, member of the public. You all know my name, but for those people who don't know, I'm the old bugger Stefan von Mühlen. So here it is. I would have loved to ask that question while the people were here for the zoning bylaw or 10th amendment of the whole planning. I was actually quite surprised that per hectare of land, it looks like you want to put 16 to 18 houses on, if I understood this right. And I see, like, if I understood the plan right, this was probably a year ago, the federal government said we were short 3 million homes in Canada. So if you start to make just simple math, you're going to need a lot of land to build those homes. Like if you think we need to build 3.5 million homes. So I was surprised that nobody asked the questions. It's almost 60 years ago when I watched how my hometown turned into a building place. And all they were building, not a single family house was built. They were all high rises with at least 8 families lived in. And so if you look at that, I can tell you on my way to school, there was probably not even.
Point of order, Your Worship.
Yeah, do you
There's
want
no, we were looking for a question.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Like, why nobody asked the
I
question?
think you're making a
Could they
statement.
make high-rise? Right? Like, not like just 8 family blocks. Like, is that just out of the question here?
So
I don't know.
I can't answer that. Part of the provincial policy statement as well as the official plan does have different density targets based on the local area. As mentioned, our minimum is 16 per hectare. Once you get closer to mass transit systems, the requirement is over 400. So it depends on the local area as to what the density targets are. So.
Thank you very much. I did thought, I just looked like there needs to be a lot of houses still. I'm in agreement with that, but I just thought, why are you, I mean, that would be a perfect thing because like you said, Cliff, it's got the sewer, it's got the water, it's got everything. It's available to house a lot of people. Thank you. And then would be one more question I would like to ask from the other delegation that was here with the isotopes.
Yeah.
I was very interesting and put it right up bluntly. I'm not a big fan of nuclear power plant, but that's my opinion. And I see like the isotope definitely has a place. But what I was really surprised, I've never heard of those people. Why did they go to Germany if you only got 7 days to use them?
We can find that out.
Can you find that out for me? Because I know Germany had 2 nuclear power plants and they're no more active.
Okay. We have your email. We'll get back to you. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mill Council. My name's Jim Doppel from Palmerston. My question is regarding the speed cameras. I believe that the location, the one in Palmerston is at Henry Street, is that correct? Is that where they're going to set it up?
So the community safety zone goes right from Henry all the way down to York.
Do you have the option to change that? I live on Main Street, and I find that they speed from likely Loon Street, go up to King, maybe King, and then look like King Street and down through there. Do you have the option of extending the community safe zone to slow them down, because they seem to speed from King, well, actually from Tim Hortons all the way down actually to Henry, and then all of a sudden they realize they're in town and it's like, oh, I got to slow down. So my question is, do you have the option to change that, or is that set?
That is set, Jim. So what it is a pilot project, and there's one set of cameras in all 7 municipalities in Wellington County, and it's in the community safety zones, and it is a pilot project. And over the next 6 months, there'll be a lot of information. I mean, we've had all kinds of discussion about it, and there'll be a lot of information come forward. But the camera takes a picture of your license plate, and the owner of the vehicle will get the ticket.
My concern is that those speeding from Tim in, is though a process that we can put in place to slow them down from that down, because they do come by Lewin Street and King Street fairly quick.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that this is the first step. Each municipality, if it works and works well, each municipality will have the opportunity to expand.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, so we're going to move into correspondence. I have a motion by Councillor Elliott, second by Councillor Zimmerman, that the council receives the correspondence as information. We have 6 items. Actually, we have 5. So is there anything that is of interest that we would like to pull and have a discussion on? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All in favor of receiving the correspondence as information? It's carried. Thank you very much. We're going to move into staff reports. And I'm going to ask our CBO, Terry Pipers, to talk about the resolution, Village of Clifford, Plan 2024-037, part lot control on 2024-03, 2554283, Ontario Inc., lot 87, 88, and 89 on the plan of Village of Clifford.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor Turton. Council may recall approving this exact application back in September of 2021. Same application, same property, everything. The purpose of this application is, again, the same as what was previously approved. So it's to split one parcel into 5 separate entities with the purpose of constructing 2 semi-detached buildings, so 4 units there, plus 1 single-family detached dwelling. Part lot control applications are required by the Planning Act to have an expiry built in them with a maximum of 5 years. Minto here, we typically set it at 3. Unfortunately for the builder, this expiry date was up in September of this year. So the bylaw is no longer valid. The reason why the property hasn't been split with the previous applications is part of the process, or the initial process, is to get local council approval. And then they have to register the registered plan with Land Division before the county signs off on it and officially splits it. A lot of builders delay the actual registration of the deeds at Land Registry until a sale. So with this proposal, there is a semi-detached building existing with 1 unit sold. So it would be the second from the left there that's actually sold. The reason why builders delay this registration is if they proceed while they still own it and without a sale, then they're registering it in their company names. And then once it's sold, then it has to be re-registered to the new person's name. So additional paperwork, additional costs. They're trying to save on that cost. Unfortunately, sometimes we don't watch expiration dates, and it catches the builders. So again, this application is identical to the one we approved 3 years ago. Just we need to go through this process because of that expiry date. The rest of the information is in Salma's report. This is more background as to why we're here once again. So if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to take those.
The recommendation was moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Gunson, that the Council of the Town of Minto hereby receive report plan 2024-032, part lot control exemption application for 2554283, Ontario Inc., Alan Williamson, the property legal described as lots 87, 88, and 89 of the plan of the Village of Clifford in the form of Village of Clifford, the municipal address of 21 William Street South in the town of Minto, prepared by the planning coordinator for information purposes. And further, that the Council of the Town of Minto consider passing a bylaw in open council. Questions for our CBO? Go ahead, Councillor Potnevitz.
Is this one lot right now?
It is. Technically, it's 3 original lots within the plan of Clifford, but they have been merged. So opposed to either splitting the deeds or going through a consent process, the owner has opted to do the part lot control exemption application.
Other questions? I'm going to call the question. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Thank you very much. I'm going to pass the chair. Councillor Gunson.
Thank you, Mayor Turton. So tonight we've got one report, municipal drain 14 tender, and Ryan's going to present the report.
Thank you, Councillor Gunson. Council may recall a few meetings ago, Streamline Engineering giving a report for this Section 78 improvement of municipal drain 14. This improvement project includes deepening of an existing ditch north of 8th line, and then a new road bore through the 8th line, and then a replacement of pipe for approximately 168 meters to the south of the 8th line. We have tendered this work, and we have received 5 bids. 3 lowest bids have been reviewed by Streamline Engineering and the town, and the winning bid is recommended to be rewarded to Hannah and Hamilton Construction for $109,000. If you have any questions, I'll have to take them. Thanks.
Thanks, Ryan. I'll read the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Elliott, second by Councillor Potnowitz. Council of the Town of Minto hereby receives report PW 2024-027 Municipal Drain Number 14 RFT results prepared by the Drainage Superintendent for information purposes. And further, that the Council of the Town of Minto awards contract to Hannah and Hamilton Construction Company Limited for the total tender price of $109,873.50, excluding HST. Any questions for Ryan? Your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ryan, on the completion date, all 5 contractors have given, 4 of the 5 have given a different date. Was there a date set, or how's that work?
Well, the DFO actually permits a timing window when the in-water works can happen. So the dates that for the winning bid actually align with that date. So the completion of the work has to be done by that date, whereas some of these other dates don't coincide with the dates included. Yeah, so, and for the owners, they don't have a preference as long as it gets done next year. So they just want the lowest bid.
Thank you. Any further question? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Thank you. That is passed. And I'm going to pass the chair to Councillor Dirksen.
Thank you, Councillor Benson. And we have 3 items on the finance agenda this evening. We'll stick with the theme of tile drainage, and
Exactly.
we have a loan to look at.
Exactly. Thank you, Chair Dirksen. This is a tile drainage loan. We had the original application come to council in September, and now it's moving forward. Again, there haven't been any big changes to the tile drain program for quite a few years. Still has a maximum amount of $50,000 per year. This particular project is asking for $38,000, and the interest rates are also unchanged. So our deputy treasurer has prepared all the documents along with Ryan from the technical point of view. So we'll be bringing forward the bylaw later for that.
Okay, I'll read the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Zimmerman and seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson that the Council of the Town of Minto hereby receives Report Finance 2024-20 Tile Drainage Loan prepared by the Deputy Treasurer for information purposes. And further, that the Council of the Town of Minto approves the Tile Drainage Rating Bylaw 2024-061 during open session. Are there any questions? Okay, all in favor? Thank you, that carries. Moving on to the second one.
Okay, and you'll recall just about a month ago, we received our 2023 financial statements. So the term of that one, we did a joint proposal with some other lower tier municipalities, and that actually expired in 23. So we need to appoint auditors for this year for 24. We did have an option to extend for 1 or 2 years. I had a chat with the auditors, and like many businesses, and the audit is a business, they have some staff shortage problems too. So I hope they can maybe address that a bit better in the coming years. And also there's been some talk among some of the other treasurers in the lower tiers in Wellington that we may want to go through the RFP process again. But considering this is mid-November, I think it best to appoint the auditors that we have for this year and move forward with that. And then we'll check it out in the spring or summer and see what we want to do going forward. So that's our recommendation for that.
Read the recommendation moved by Councillor Gunson and seconded by Councillor Elliott that the Council of the Town of Minto hereby receives Report Finance 2024-21 appointment of auditors prepared by the Treasurer for information purposes, and that the Council of the Town of Minto reappoints RLB Chartered Professional Accountants for a 1-year term, 2024 audit. And further, that the council of the town of Minto considers the related bylaw during session. Are there any questions? I'll call the question. All in favor? That carries. And number 3, this might take us a little bit longer.
Anyway, so this is a high-level review of our operating results as of the third quarter, which is September 30th. So again, you'll see a lot more activity. As we know, the summer is construction season, so we have a lot more of those projects moving forward and the related payments too. Just looking at the overall spending, we have spent about 68% of the $11.8 million expenditure. In general, I know that I say this a lot, when you're looking at a point in time, the revenue tends to come in fairly quickly, and there's always a delay in payables. Like for example, your hydro bills, you're usually paying in September what you used in June or July, so there's always a bit of a delay, and that's why we don't cut off our year end until usually early March. For revenues non-tax, we've received about 65%. A lot of that is grant revenue, user fees, things like that. For non-tax supported, that basically means water and wastewater. So we've spent just a little over 61% of the expenditures that were budgeted, and we've received, again, just a little over 3/4 of the revenue. So that kind of proves my point on revenues versus expenditures. We also had our third installment of our property tax due September 27th. And while it is true tax arrears are higher than they were in COVID, they're still at levels basically at pre-COVID or just approaching that. So we've got 96% of the anticipated revenue of the current taxes. And then there's some tables that illustrate this and kind of give you a comparison with prior years. Again, as we hopefully move past that rough time, I think the comparisons are a little more meaningful than when in 2020 and 22, that period we weren't near as busy, especially in the community services department. So most things are pretty much on trend with the previous year. Probably a bit of a timing difference, a little bit more on water and wastewater this year. Yeah, so basically gives you a series of comparisons for 22, 23, and 24. On the whole, things are fairly close, in line with historical trends. And as far as the capital budget, again, in the first quarter, you know, we barely spend anything, but in the first 3 quarters, we're spending quite a bit more. This last quarter, while it doesn't feel like winter, usually a lot of the bills come in from the summer season, but we're still doing some outdoor work. And I think prominently Derby Street, I think they're coming along to the final stages of that project. And that was our big one for 2024. So all the plans and that too, that's certainly moving into the last stages. Fire department has made most of the purchases of the PPE and other equipment, and vehicle purchases are pretty much getting complete. And yeah, so all our plans and reserve transfers move forward. So anyway, nothing too surprising, but take any questions.
Okay, I'll read the recommendation first. Moved by Councillor Podowitz and seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson that the Council of the Town of Minto hereby receives Report Finance 2024-22, the 2024 third quarter financial review prepared to the Treasurer for information purposes. Any questions? Mayor Turton?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. You said tax arrears are, what did you say? I'm sorry.
I said they're higher. It was kind of funny. So we're in 2019, then we're hit by 2020, and everybody kind of hit the panic button. What's going to happen to our tax arrears? But really, there was government support, and we were all basically staying at home, and there weren't many activities. So tax arrears went to, I'd say, a historic low. Now that things have picked up again, the economy's, certainly active. There's a lot more places to spend your money, and we've had very severe inflation for the last year and a half or two. So arrears have climbed, but they're more come back to in line with 2018, 2019. So as a percentage, they're back approaching, I'd say maybe 9%, whereas they were more like 8%, but they've historically been 10 to 11%. So things are going.
One more question. Winter maintenance, Treasurer Duff, where am I looking for that?
It's buried in Public Works,
okay.
but
Yep.
I can get you more specific figures.
So
but
in an opinion, I mean, we had a very mild winter, January, February, March 24. So far in 24 in the fall, it's been good. So yeah,
we did, yeah. Although if Mike was here, I know he'd say the problem with those mild winters is you have that temperature around the freezing mark, and you end up using a lot of salt and sand, and you still have to do the patrols. Whereas in some ways, if you just get a nice, whatever, deposit of snow, you just clear it away, and it's not as hard, especially if the temperature gets cold and stays cold, and you're not constantly dealing with that freeze-thaw cycle. So, but to date, cross our fingers, the fall has been wonderful.
So far, so good.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Sure.
Can I just ask a point of
Sure.
clarification? I thought I understood what it said, but now I'm not so sure.
Sure.
So it says the third installment of the interim property taxes was due on September 27th, 24,
Right.
and this report goes to September 30th.
Right. Yeah.
At the end of the third quarter, the town has received 96% of the anticipated amount. So does that mean the anticipated amount that was due September 27th, or the amount that's due next week?
No,
okay.
you're right on the first one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So like anticipate ideal world, everybody paid dead on time, not ahead or behind. You'd collect 3/4 of all your taxes. So
Right.
we've collected 96% of the 3/4.
Of the 3/4, yeah,
Right.
which is still pretty good.
But yeah, I
Very
think it's
impressive,
very
I think.
good. I'm quite pleased with
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Are there any other questions? All right. All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer Duff, and I'll turn the chair back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Dirksen. Do you want to start the announcements?
I can do that.
Please.
Sure. So I wanted to mention that we have Christmas parades coming up, and they start this Saturday. Our parades are all on Saturday evenings, and they all start at 7, and they start this week, and there's no week spaces, so it's very easy, right? November 23rd in Harriston, November 30th in Clifford, and December 7th in Palmerston, all 7 o'clock, and those are all Saturdays. And the other thing I wanted to mention was Grey Wellington Theatre Guild. Their show Anne of Green Gables is starting this weekend on Friday evening, I believe it is, and it is going to, there are dates between then and December 7th, and there's a whole troop of them working hard to provide a very professional showing of Anne of Green Gables, so get out and enjoy that if you can.
Thank you, Councillor Dirksen. Councillor Zimmerman, go ahead.
Wonderful. It is one busy time in Minto right now. So this week on Thursday, November 21st, over in Palmerston, it's going to be the Kris Kringle Market downtown. We'll be featuring shopping, craft market, food trucks, photo ops with holiday characters, fire pits, and a whole bunch more. They've got road closures, streets are closed. It's a happening place. Let's see what else. Also on Saturday, the 23rd, from 2 to 4, the Harrison Rising Group is hosting a hometown Christmas in Tannery Park, featuring songs, goodies, and holiday cheer. At 5:30 on Saturday, the Crown Theatre in Harrison is going to be showing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And also at 5:30, a special hockey game taking place with the Orangeville Viking U11 hockey team playing against Oakville. So this is a hockey game in support of Skylar Bueller. She's 10-year-old daughter of Kaylee and Ryan Bueller of Harrison, who's been fighting cancer. So I know they've got a big day scheduled for that, and that's going to be at 5:30. Be great to see the arena filled for that if we can, and all donations are going to go to the Bueller family. If you can't make it to the game, you can donate directly. Call Shelley Fisk at 519 519-503-0968. And then Judy already mentioned 7 p.m. is the Harrison Santa Claus.
Councillor Zimmerman, where do you get all that information?
Oh, I am so busy. It's
Okay.
available online. Everybody's got to get online and look. It's
Okay.
there. The town of
There it
Minto
is.
has a great website.
Yep.
It's got all the events and stuff on there. Facebook, Instagram, all that kind of.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Turton. So my biggest announcement is, as usual, the annual Christmas dinner. People are starting to ask if it's happening, and yes, it is happening, December 25th at the Harrison Arena. We are going to switch things up a little bit this year. The organizing all the rides and drivers is overwhelming, and I usually make mistakes. So we're going to ask people to try and organize their own rides and pickups. Meals will be available for pickup for an hour and a half prior to the sit-down meal at 1 o'clock. And if anybody's in desperate need and can't make those arrangements, of course, they can contact us. And this coming week, the 27th, there's an urn demonstration, a Christmas urn demonstration out at Violet's in the Barn at 7 o'clock. And Wednesday evening is the Horticultural Society's AGM and potluck dinner, and your opportunity to come forward and be elected to a position on the board of the Hort Society, just in case anybody's looking for something to add to their already busy schedules. We'd love to see you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Anderson. Go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
Okay,
If you want to use your mic, please.
okay. I got a couple of things, or actually 3 things. Light Up the Park was last weekend, and it was just amazing. We're guessing last year we thought we had around 1,200. We had at least 1,500. We had more again this year. And the lights that were in there were just amazing, and the fireworks and all the different groups that were around, and it was something to behold. We were talking to different people that were from out of town, that came from Listowel, came from Mount Forest, Japan. Was a lady from Japan. she's in for TG Minnow, but she showed up and said, I said, where are you from? Japan. And I believe there was one group was from Germany, but they happened to be in the town at that time. So it's quite an amazing thing, and it's a really good partnership with the town and with our great Lions Club. The Lions Club have been working on this for weeks and weeks and weeks to put it together, and it was a perfect success, and we're so happy to do that and be involved in the town doing that. So that's just one part of our events that we have in our town of Minto. And if you get out to the other Christmas events, they're all well attended and well done too. November 28th at the Norgan Theater, we're having the Moors Band at Christmas. And we have a couple of guest singers, one from Palmerston. Mary, you probably know one of them. Your niece, I think, is part of it. And Mr. Hale, he's from Harrison. He's going to be part of that program too. We had them a few years ago, and they're fantastic. Everybody knows how good the Moors are. So that should be a good event. Hopefully our tickets are selling really well. So get them before they're all gone. And $20 a head before if you buy them ahead of time, $25 at the door. And again on the 23rd of this week, the 81s are playing Seaforth, and that's minor hockey day, and they'll be giving out thunder sticks. They wrap them together, and they've got 81s on them for all the kids. All the kids that wear a hockey sweater that day will get in, and as long as they're with an adult. So another good event. I think Mr. Gunson's got more to say because that's minor hockey day that day too, and it's all intertwined with the 81s. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Councillor Pottovich. I don't think there's anything left to say. Councillor Gunson.
I was thinking the same thing I said, but I do have something to say. So Ron mentioned Minto Minor Hockey Day, so let's start Saturday. Well, it is only on Saturday, but it starts at 8 o'clock in the morning with the little wee kids starting, and it goes right through till 3:15 p.m. is the start of the last game. There's going to be raffle baskets. You buy tickets for the raffle baskets, and then that will carry on into the 81s game. We'll do the draw at the 81s game for the baskets. I think there's like a candy one, a mum one, a dad one, and some mini sticks, mystery mini sticks that kids are raving about. So it's always a hit. The thunder sticks, like Ron mentioned, I don't know if you want your kids to have those because bring them home and they can be loud. So my son will be leaving his at the arena when we leave.
I can slip them to you.
And then I just want to thank Paul for mentioning that fundraising game for Skylar. That's my niece. Skylar Beeler is my niece, and they just have a lot of costs to deal with now for the next couple of years with a lot of travel and stuff. So you might see a few little fundraisers come through for Skylar. So if you can support them, by all means, help support them. And that's all I have. Thank you.
I've got a couple items. First one, all the folks in our community and surrounding communities that took the time to get out to the cenotaphs and celebrate on November 11th or before or after. And the schools, all the volunteers, the teachers that brought the kids to the cenotaphs. It was absolutely amazing. I was in Hairston. I know folks were in Palmerston, and they were very busy at the cenotaphs this morning of November 11th, and that's something that's extremely important. Judy was our bugler. Is that right?
I use a trumpet, actually.
Okay. Trumpeter. So more than once I've seen you around the community doing it. And thank you for continuing to do that. The other thing, so sorry, Skylar Bueller, the date, Saturday at Hairston Arena
5:30.
at 5:30.
If anybody would like to clone myself, more than happy to dress up as myself. I can try and be at 3 different events.
That's perfect.
But yes, 5:30 Saturday.
Because that's very important. That's a sad situation, and as a community, we need to support. So the last thing is shopping local.
Sorry. I just wanted to mention that there was a fundraiser on Sunday morning that we attended in Palmerston. The Optimist put on a breakfast, a pancake breakfast, and it was quite well attended. So yeah, there are a few
lots going on.
A few opportunities to help them out, which yes, we all need to do.
Mm-hmm. Shopping local this time of year is very important. We have lots of great businesses in our community, in all three of our communities, that we need to support as citizens of the town of Minto. So I'm just asking on behalf of council to make that choice, support our local business. Shop local. So, nothing else?
That keeps us all busy for a couple weeks.
I have a resolution moved by Councillor Dirksen, seconded by Councillor Zimmerman, that the committee of the whole convene in regular council. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Thank you. Notices of motion. Anything under that topic? Seeing none. Resolution moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that the Council of the Town of Minto ratifies the motions made in the committee of the whole. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Thank you. Bylaws. Resolution moved by Councillor Potnevich, seconded by Councillor Dirksen, that bylaw 2024-053 be read a third time and passed in open council and sealed with the seal of the corporation. All in favor of that motion? Carried. Thank you. Resolution moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Zimmerman, that bylaw 2024-061 through 2024-063 be read a first, second, and third time, passed in open council, sealed with the seal of the corporation. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Thank you. Confirmatory, moved by Councillor Dirksen, seconded by Councillor Potnevitz, that bylaw 2024-064 to confirm actions of the council, corporation of the town of Minto, affecting a meeting held November 19th, 2024, be read first, second, and third time, passed in open council and sealed the corporation. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Thank you. Adjournment, moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that the council of the town of Minto adjourn to meet again, call the mayor. All in favor of that motion? Thank you very much for a very productive meeting, and thanks to all who joined us tonight.